I know it's short, it can be very difficult to believe, and I myself would doubt if someone was telling me. I still don't understand it. I'm from Mexicali and I lived here all my life until I was 18 when I entered the Autonomous University of Baja California in Tijuana. At first I visited my family in Mexicali from time to time by bus. But in the middle of my studies, I was able to buy a car and then I started visiting them every weekend. I had already heard things about La Rumorosa. First of all, of course, how dangerous it is to drive and all the accidents that occur, but also about strange things that happen there. I remember a story that my mother told us when we were children. Her parents, my grandparents, went from Mexicali to Tijuana before going up La Rumorosa on the section of the Salt Lagoon Highway, an area that literally passes through the desert. It was dawn, and only my grandfather was awake. My grandmother and some aunts were asleep in the back. Suddenly, my grandfather saw a woman on the side of the road, as if hitchhiking. He braked about 100 meters later and woke my grandmother. They went down to see if the girl needed help, but they didn't see anyone. The girl was gone. They could almost hear a whine in the wind, that noisy and hot wind that runs in Mexicali, and more in the Salt Lagoon. They got in the car and moved forward, thinking that maybe my grandfather had only imagined it in a dream. Until then, my aunts woke up in the backseat, and my grandmother explained why they had stopped. My grandfather turned for a moment to explain something to them and saw how the expression of one of my aunts changed, and her eyes widened as if they were going to pop out. He quickly looked back to the front, and the woman was sitting on the hood, smiling at all four passengers. I always had this anecdote in my head when I went by. On one of my trips to visit my family, I couldn't get it out of my head. It was a Friday. I had been with my girlfriend after school and I told her this story. When we said goodbye, she told me to be very careful and gave me a kiss. I felt like it was the last one we would give each other. I left Tijuana at about 9 at night. Before it was 10 o'clock, I was passing by Tecate. I like this little town so much that I always came for bread or coffee, but this time I decided not to stop. I saw the car clock and it was almost 10:40 when I entered the town of La Rumorosa, that part where you find a little ranch abandoned next to the road every 2 or 3 kilometers, but outside of that, it was deserted. I heard a very loud sound, like a trailer flashing right behind me, and some lights blinded me. But the lights weren't just coming from behind, I felt they were coming from all directions. I was just so shocked that I didn't know where they were coming from. The sound fell suddenly. The lights disappeared a little later. My hands were shaking and I was pressing them against the wheel, waiting to find a place to stop briefly to recover. The lights appeared again. I felt that at any moment I was going to crash into something or I was going to get off the road. I heard sounds like trucks in the distance. I felt how they approached. I could not see anything because of the lights that entered the truck and the sounds were getting closer and closer. When I felt that the sounds almost hit me, I decided to take a big swerve and get off the road. Maybe by instinct, I felt that I had more chances of surviving if I fell into a ditch next to the road or crashed into the bushes than if I stayed and crashed into something that came from the front. I felt the car enter the terrain, but I couldn't see anything. I completely braked a meter later. The sound was getting louder and louder, as if a trailer was right above me. I just closed my eyes and started thinking about my family, my girlfriend, how I would like to hear that road story again. And everything fell silent. Even with my eyes closed, I realized that the lights had gone. I opened them and looked around me. A few seconds passed so that my eyes would get used to the absolute darkness of where I was. I couldn't recognize the exact place. I didn't see anything around. Just sand. Sand. At that moment, I didn't react to how strange it was that it was sand, not bushes or pines of the La Rumorosa area. I wanted to see silhouettes in the dark, about 20 meters high, thin. Maybe they were just shadows, but the shadows were approaching. I got in the car and accelerated back to the road. The next thing, I don't know how to explain it, I don't know how to express the confusion I felt at that moment when I realized where I was. I was already in the salt lagoon, almost entering Mexicali. That is, hundreds of kilometers from where I had seen the lights, an hour and a half or 2 hours of road. Somehow I jumped that descent full of curves, the dangerous road of La Rumorosa. I entered, I went down it, I crossed it without realizing it, and in a few seconds I could not handle the confusion. I felt a great desire to vomit. My stomach burned, I was short of air. I finally reached the populated part and saw the light of a small open shop, the first light I saw since those white lights on the road. Then I realized that I hadn't seen any other car since I heard those sounds. In the shop, there was an older lady. When I entered, she surely noticed something because she asked me if I was okay. I asked for water and without realizing it, I let myself fall. My legs buckled, with a great desire to cry, perhaps of happiness to finally find another person with a kind face. A boy called her and told her that they had prepared tea. I did not dare to explain to him what had happened to me. The lady did not ask me anything, but she told me that I should not have crossed that road alone at that time in the morning. I looked at the clock. It was 3 in the morning. I do not know how I crossed La Rumorosa, nor what had happened in the last 5 hours, which for me were a few minutes. I just finished my tea and said goodbye. The cell phone in my car had dozens of lost calls, messages from my parents, from my girlfriend, from my friends. I don't know how I crossed hundreds of kilometers and the street of La Rumorosa in a second. I don't know how those seconds later turned out to be 5 hours. I don't know what the hell happened that day. I have told this to very few people. Actually, I don't expect people I've talked to believe me, but at least they're the ones who know they're not going to think I'm crazy. I haven't noticed anything strange afterward, no change in my life. I just don't travel alone through La Rumorosa and never at night. I avoid thanking the lady at the store when I pass by. As much as I want to thank her for what she did for me, I feel that it would be reliving what I felt that night. You don't know how difficult it is to write this again, or the feeling I have when I think about the moment I click send and know that so many people are going to know my story and that obviously they will not believe me. I hope that nobody goes through this. It really is something that I do not wish on my worst enemy. Thank you very much for reading.